Yes, that's right. It's Joe here live for Joyrider TV, back with some more Q&A, hopefully answering all of your most pressing catamaran sailing questions in the next hour or so. Yeah, in this edition of the Q&A, we are going to be looking at, amongst many other things, we're going to be looking at jib traveler settings. Yes, I have spotted a question in the live chat already. We're also going to be looking at some camera mounting from recent videos on Joyrider TV. We're going to be looking at how to leave a congested beach in an offshore wind. And we are, of course, going to be looking at the pros and cons of having a boom on your catamaran, which I think is quite an interesting question to kick off with. So let's kick off with the first one. And this question has actually come in from Colin, who says, I've had 2 Dart 15s without booms, and a lot of catamarans, including some performance boats, don't have them either. I don't see the point if you're not adjusting the outhaul at all. You may point a little bit higher, but everything is a compromise. Okay, and yeah, so what are the pros and cons of having a boom? First, or of not having a boom. All right, so here we've got a boat without a boom, and then here we've got a boat with a boom. Yeah, we're kind of on a slope at the moment. All right, so the most obvious benefits of not having a boom is, the first one is it gives you so much more space to pass under the sail when you're crossing sides of the boat. I think that's a pretty obvious one. Along with that, with this space for crossing the boat, you also don't have this hard metal object that could whack you on the head if you perhaps weren't paying attention quite as much as you might have been. Yeah, and along with those things, because the bottom of the sail is generally a bit higher, it also means that your visibility is going to be better when you're sailing a boat without a boom. Like if we're on the boat, like here, if that is our head there, then you're going to be able to see a lot better down in this direction. So that is going to be really helpful to not have a boom, so you can see more. Very nice. All right, so those are, and the final bonus of not having a boom, 2 bonuses. You're going to save weight on the boat. Yes, it's going to be more simple, less things to do when assembling the boat. Yeah, and just takes out one extra bit of preparation time when you're putting the boat together. Most boats that don't have a boom, you just simply hook the main sheet into the clew of the sail, and then she's good to go. So that is why the boomless design is good. And you'll generally find boats without booms, or you'll find I'm going to say that again. You'll generally have more boomless designed boats in the leisure end of the market. So boats which aren't designed for quite such high performance. So boats like the Nacra 450 that I was sailing around Texel, or the Hobie Wave, or what's another good leisure example might be, thinking of a leisure example, the Hobie Getaway. Am I right there? Does the Getaway have a boom? Yes, thank you, Ryan, coming into the live chat with the Getaway. Yeah, and then there are some racing boats that don't have a boom, like Colin mentioned, the Dart 15 and 18, which were designed to be as simple as possible, so that all that the sailor has to do is focus on the racing and not so much on the tuning, the tweaking, the having more parts on the boat. Okay, so those are the benefits of not having a boom, but you would generally not have a boom on boats which are slightly less powerful. Okay, at this point, I'd just like to say hello and thank you to Hussein for kicking off the round with a super stickers, keeping the Q&A ad free. Thank you very much. All right, so what are the benefits of having a boom? Oh, actually, another comment coming in. Inflatable boats are boomless, says SA 1510. Yes, thank you for that as well. Not all inflatable boats. I only say that because I have MiniCat 420, which does have a boom. So some inflatable boats don't have a boom. Again, it's to keep the boats as simple as possible. If you're not carrying huge sails and you don't need that level of support, then off we go. All right, I'd just like to thank Mr. Tony KP in Denmark for the super sticker, keeping the Q&A ad free. Thanks very much for that and showing your support for the Joyrider TV Q&A, which I think is a valuable service for catamaran sailors on a Friday, getting you ready for the weekend. So here is the main reason for having a boom. If, like here, we are limited if we don't have a boom to the size of the sail, how far the sail can come back. Because if on a boomless boat, let's say it's quite extreme, the boom came this far back, yeah, if we let's say we hooked the main sheet into the clew, what is that going to do when we pull it in this direction, which is how it would pull? It's going to also be pulling this way, and it's just going to bend the bottom of the sail. So if we want to have more sail area, this bottom part of the sail without a boom is just going to be completely, we don't have control over that shape, and the profile of the bottom of the sail is going to be like that, which is not efficient in any situation at all. So this is the limitation of not having a boom, that we are limited to the sail. Like if we obviously have our traveller track at the back of the boat here, the sail can't go any further back than the traveller track. You could possibly have what's called a bit of roach. Roach is all right, we've got let's put some more colors on here. So if we had a straight line between the top of the mast and the clew of the sail, like a triangular sail, like you might see on a yacht or a traditional dinghy, anything outside of that line that goes further back is called the roach. The roach of the sail on a catamaran is, of course, supported by the battens, but we could have more roach on the sail if we did want to have more sail area, so without a boom, but it would have to come in so that it's not further back than the traveller track where the main sheet is going to attach. Okay, so with the boom, what we have, as well as being able to support a longer sail, we also have more leverage to sheet it in, largely because on most boats, the point at which the main sheet attaches would be further back, which gives us more leverage to sheet in, meaning that it's easier to pull the sail in. That's nice. We also, on a boat with a boom, we also have a clew out haul. The purpose of the clew out haul is to pull, well, is basically to control this bottom part of the sail, the shape in that part of the sail. So if we pull more out haul on, we get a flatter part, flatter lower section of the boom. If we let the out haul off, we get a deeper profile in the bottom of the sail, which might be better for lighter winds or if you're sailing in particularly heavy seas. So just trying to think, what other benefits do we get from the boom? The boom also does a good job in, what would you call it? Engaging our mast rotation. So if, let's find something that is a mast. Here's our mast. And then, so if the mast was on the boat here, it'd be rotated like that. And then if this is our oversized boom, the boom will attach towards to the back of the mast. So when we sheet in, it's pushing along the boom this way, which is pushing the mast round, which is locking our mast rotation into position, which means the mast isn't going to be able to do any independent movement without us wanting it to happen. Yeah. So I think those are the main benefits of having a boom. Just more control on the sail, more leverage, and it means we can sail with a more powerful rig. There we go. That is where I'm going to park that one, unless anybody in the live chat wants to follow up on that. All right, so I'm just going to check in with everybody who is checking in live. So starting off with SA 1510 in Helsinki. Nice to have you on board. I'm going to come on to your question next, but I'm just going to check in with everybody else first. Christian is on board in British Columbia, I believe. And Christian is currently checking in on JYT. Joyrider TV. Okay, nice. From 30,000 feet over northern Canada. Very nice. Yeah, really this week hitting the corners of the world, which I always find like that's a really nice thing to be able to do. Mr. Tony KP says hello to every cat sailor. Hussein says hello to all from Egypt. Ryan is on board. Hello, Ryan. Bernard is on board in Austria. Great to have you with us, Bernard, as always. Who else have we got with us? We've got Dan, Dan Petro. All right, I'll come on to your question next, Dan. All right, and oh yeah, Bobby Bruce is on board. This is a boom-related feature, which we are continuing with before we go on to the questions. So Bobby says his Hobie 17 Sport mainsail only has a giblet that's about 24 inches long. What's 24 inches these days? More than that. Okay, but that and a half. Yeah, so I think what Bobby is talking about here when he says giblet would be like on the I think the Nacra 6.0 had the same system where, all right, let's do a nice drawing. So this does not look like a Hobie 17, by the way. I appreciate that. So the bottom of the sail on the 17, pretty low, and then it would go to a bit like that before the sail starts. So this section of the sail has a small solid part, like boom-like part, and then on this sort of system, on a lot of the boats that have these systems, you can actually alter forwards and backwards where your main sheet attaches. So if you have it further forwards, then the main sheet is going to pull and have a similar effect to putting more outhaul on. Yeah. Does that sound feasible? I think so, because if we're pulling more forwards on the small track, it's going to be kind of pulling the bottom of the sail that way. Whereas if we put the track, which is on this bit of boom further back, like here, then it's going to push more, which is going to put more curve into the bottom of the sail. Yeah, very nice. Not quite as effective, of course, as a fully solid boom, but still another viable option. Thank you, Bobby. Nice to have you on board. All right, Extraordinary Horizons is on board. Hey, everyone. Nice. Derek is with us. Hello from Summerland, British Columbia. Nice. RJ Fleet is on board. Nice to have you with us, as always. M. Weiss is on board in Utah, USA. Full Utah, all day, every day. That is how we're living. Oh, yeah. Okay. Hussein says, please, more likes from fellow sailors, please. So, yeah, please do hit the like button when you find yourself with a spare finger. You know what to do. It is the easiest way to support the Q&A, because by having more interaction, like through likes, more people will get to see this fine presentation. All right. Okay. And this is a very quick one. Quick question from Lihu Tech. Should I, you'll like this. Should I fill my hulls with hydrogen? I keep pitch poling. I'm not sure. Do you really mean hydrogen? Crikey. Yeah. I think that, yeah, I think the quick answer is no. Helium, you could try with helium in the mast to make the boat a bit lighter. I don't think it would work so well though. But short answer, no. I think if you keep pitch poling, maybe first thing to try is adjusting your mast rake and just put your mast a little bit further back. That would be the first thing. Second thing, of course, move your actual body weight further back on the boat, and so on. There we go. All right. So first question from the live chat. All right. Sorry, just tidying up a bit there. I think that was a flying start to the session. So this one comes from SA1510 in Helsinki. Has a Hobie 16, which has a jib traveler where you pull to. Oh, right. Okay. You see, I see. It's perhaps one of the older versions where there's a little plunger on top. You pull it up and then you can slide it in or out, either towards or away from the mast. So if we just have, if this is our mast here, and then this is no good. This is no good. We need better production value. Oh yeah, that's better. Then that's the hull. There we go. So we've got the jib traveler track, which has a range of something like that. So, and then of course we've got at the back of the boat, we've got the track for the main traveler as well, which has a range of the whole of the width of the boat. So basically, first concept we could apply when it comes to the jib traveler track is we're going to basically mirror what we are doing with the main traveler. So if we're putting the main traveller halfway out, then we'll put the jib traveller halfway out. But better still, if it's going halfway out on the main, it's always nice, bit better to put the jib traveller a bit further, like an extra 25%. If we look at it in percentage of the range, so this is 50%, that would be 50%. So then we're taking the jib traveller to 75%. All right. So firstly, why are we moving the mainsail traveller? We could move the main traveller for two different reasons. One is for point of sail. So this is taking it back to the fundamentals. Very important. So for upwind, there's our wind. For upwind, before we start talking about losing power here, by the way, upwind, traveller all the way in. Beam reach will have the traveller, let's say, about halfway out, very generally speaking. And then downwind will have the traveller all the way out. Okay, so upwind, jib traveller, the same, all the way in. Beam reach, jib traveller. And as we've said, we're going to put it a bit further out than the mainsail traveller, 75%, and then downwind, jib traveller all the way out. Okay, first concept there. Second concept is for power control. So if you, this is the main traveller we're talking about first. So if when you're sailing along, you're feeling like you need to be letting main sheet out all the time to control the power, it is much more efficient, safer, easier to control, and you don't have to work with as much sheet if you let out the traveller. So if with the traveller central, you're having to work with 2 meters of main sheet to control the boat, if you let the traveller out to halfway, you're going to have to work with probably about 30 centimeters, like one armful of main sheet to keep the boat under control, sailing efficiently. So it is much more efficient to let the traveller out rather than be just dumping loads and loads of main sheet. This is because what we need to be doing while we're sailing is controlling the power. And if we have got the main sheet in tight by letting the traveller out, it means we are in control of the mainsail. So the opposite of this would be having the main sheet absolutely out loads, like dumped. Then it means we're not in control of the mainsail at all. The mainsail is just being kind of put where it is by the pressure in the wind. And we're not controlling it at all because there isn't any tension in the main sheet. So that is why we're going to use the traveller instead for power control. So we're using it for power control and point of sail. So if we're upwind and we're overpowered, we might let the traveller out, let's say 25%, so that we don't have to let the main sheet out as much. Then if we're on a beam reach and we're overpowered, we're having to ease the main sheet a lot because otherwise we're talking about putting nitrogen or something in our hulls, hydrogen in our hulls to stop us pitchpoling. Then let's put the traveller further out on the beam reach than halfway so that we've got less power. We can sail with more main sheet on for more control. And on the downwind, of course, if we had the traveller out all the way anyway, then we're going to have the main sheet eased even in the stronger wind. So there we go. And the same for the jib traveller. So why is it that it's better to have the jib traveller a little bit further out than the mainsail traveller? It's because what we want to do is look after our relationship, the airflow between the mainsail and the jib in this area which we call the slot. So if the jib is coming from here, so this would be main traveller out 25%, jib traveller getting on for 50%. And we can see that with the sails like this, the wind or air coming through the slot has got a nice smooth passage that it's going to take. And what the slot is actually doing is it's accelerating the speed of the wind coming through this gap, which gets us more power from the mainsail. What we don't want to allow to happen is to have it so that the jib is tighter than the mainsail. Let's see what happens if we do that. Tighter in terms of traveller. So if the jib traveller was all the way in, main traveller out, then what's going to happen is the wind coming through here is going to hit the back of the mainsail too sort of square. We're then going to get turbulent airflow around the back of the mainsail, and we don't want that. So we're going to keep that slot so that we've got the same kind of profile going around the main and the jib. And then if it's getting windy and we're loosening the jib traveller for power, we don't necessarily, or especially if it's really windy, we definitely don't want the wind getting compressed through the slot and accelerated, giving us even more power. So instead, if we had the jib traveller all the way out, we can see that the gap between the mast and the jib is much bigger. So it's not going to be getting compressed through that gap. So we're not going to get as much acceleration from the wind over the back of the mainsail. So there we go. Those are our jib traveller positions. I would suggest if it's windy enough to start lifting the hull and you're not racing, I would set the jib travellers all of the way out, all of the time, especially if you're not looking to get more power on the boat. It's just going to make everything that little bit easier to control, to manage, and it's going to go better. And it means that you don't have to worry about them if they're already set all the way out. There we go. Hope that helps. Yes. All right. Diving back into the live chat. All right, we've got Chris Peters on board in Australia. Okay, nice to have you with us, Pete. Chris, sorry, we really are hitting the other ends of the world in the live chat. Yeah, it must be something close to, what would it be, like 3 in the morning? I suppose it depends on which side of Australia you are in, but nice to have you with us. All right, so interesting bit of science from Christian in Canada on the aeroplane, who says to Lihu Tech, a vacuum would be even better. There we go. I have no idea. Okay, we've got Derek on board. Hello, Derek. Derek says the anti-dive plates on the bow help pitch poling as well. Yeah, I did a video on these, testing them. So to prevent pitch poling, if it's a Hobie 16 or 14, or I think they do fit on the 18 as well. Hobie did, and you can still get these. If this is the bows, I don't know what I just dropped on the floor. It can't have been important. If these are the bows, the anti-pitch pole plates basically fit onto the bows, and bit of an exaggeration like that. So if we had the side profile of the hull, there's the deck, these plates would kind of fit under the gunnel like that at a slight angle. So when you start diving the bow down, those plates, the water goes against the bottom of them and it actually pushes against the water. Really quite interesting to sail with. Do check out the video on using the pitch pole plates if you have not seen that before. Very nice. Okay, so thanks very much to Ryan for the super chat. These super chats are keeping the Q&A ad free. If you're watching this later on, all right, this is the sad realization. If you're watching this later on and you are seeing adverts on your live Q&A video, it is because we didn't hit the target with the super chats during the session. It's just one of those things. Because at the end of the day, I've got to pay the bills, man. You know how it is. Yeah, so and YouTube like me to put the adverts on the video, but when we hit the target in the live session, then the adverts stay off. So I try not to be too much for mercenary about such things, but yeah, we've got to pay the bills, man. All right, so Bernard says I vote for rocket boosters on the hulls. Good choice there. I think that might not be class legal in certain catamaran racing fleets. All right, we've got Cucks Oliver on board. Hello to everybody. Have a great time. Greetings from Northern Germany. Great to have you on board there, Oliver. Thanks for coming. All right, so the next preloaded question. All right. Okay, next preloaded question. This comes from Angelos, who is, I believe, based on a small island near to Athens, Greece. And I was actually coaching Angelos earlier on this summer. Angelos has a ducky inflatable catamaran, and it's a big boat. I think it's like, what is it, getting on for 20 feet long, big trampoline between the bows. There's racks on there. It's got a nice canopy on there for the sun, and then the sails. So it's kind of like if you had one of these big cruising catamarans, but as an inflatable beach catamaran, something like that. Yeah. All right. So Angelos's question is, and I'm going to kind of, I think it's the word paraphrase it because it's quite a lengthy description. So where he's launching from, when the wind is onshore, so there is the shore, first thing. When he's got quite a congested launching area. So perhaps other boats, let's simulate other boats. So maybe boats anchored in this launching area like this. And when the wind is onshore, he's using a mooring. So when it's onshore, the bow is already facing out, and thus I am fairly ready to go. However, when the wind is offshore, things are getting a little bit more involved. In fact, I'm sure we've got more space than this. Not just changing the situation to make the explanation easier, or am I? Yes, maybe I am. All right. He uses a slip line, passes it through the mooring, and then brings it from the side to the stern of the boat so that the wind turns me to face towards the open sea. Then go, when ready, release the slip line and collect it once in the open. My concern is whether the turn of the boat around its axis with the sails up. Is everyone following this? Thank you. With the sails up, may create violent movements on the sails when they are sheeted out. Would this strategy be safe? The water is deep enough to have the centerboard down, but not so if you move 5 to 10 meters towards the shore. Okay. Yeah, the slip line makes me less stressed since I can have a few meters extra and let go completely after I'm convinced I'm going the right way. I think this seems like quite a good solution. So what we're talking about is, here we are. Let's have a mooring buoy. So what he's doing is, before releasing from the mooring buoy, taking a line from the stern of the boat through the mooring buoy, and then it comes back to the side of the boat where he can hold on to it. Now, what's going to happen there? So let's say it's not a howling strong wind at this time. Is that good? Right. So if we had, just to make sure that when we release from the regular mooring, if we have the jib backed, so what's the easiest way to release from the regular mooring? To use some sort of slip line on there as well. So if you have something you could pass the mooring line through at the front of the boat, like on our all of our cats here in Greece at Wildwind, we've got the bridle wires, and then we have a loop of rope here. So passing the mooring line through there, because if we moor directly to, like, let's say the dolphin striker, then the boat isn't going to sit head to wind. It's just going to be snaking like that. So first thing is, when mooring, we want to make sure that the boat is sitting properly head to wind by having something that's going to pull the boat in the right direction. On the big cruising catamarans, what they would have is, if these are the bows of the boat like that, there's the beams, then they'd actually have long kind of bridle that extends forwards like that, which then goes onto the anchor line or mooring line. Yeah, are we getting this? So that is going to really do a great job holding the boat steady head to wind. And that might even be a better solution than going through up here, depending on how the boat is laid out. So easiest way to release from the mooring would be to have a slip line to the mooring as well. So tie one end of the rope maybe around the base of the mast, or around the dolphin striker, or around the front beam, something solid, then pass the line through the mooring buoy. So the mooring buoy is going to have something like stainless steel on it that we can pass a line through, and then that comes back to the boat, so it's easy to release it from on the boat without having to walk forwards. So what we could, here's the procedure that I'm seeing here, is we have this stern slip line already attached and tied off, maybe around the base of the shroud. So that is in place, and we've got that pretty tight. And then we release the front one slowly, mainsail really loose, like Traveller, all the way out, but the main sheet attached. Because what we don't want to happen is for the mainsail to get blown around the shroud. Like if we put the boat here, wind is blowing this way, of course. If the mainsail isn't attached, like, you could just leave the main sheet loose, but what's likely to happen is the sail is going to distort around the shroud like that, which might cause damage. So easing off this front slip line, we've got tension on the back one. And as we ease off, so ease off gradually, the front of the boat is going to get blown around. And then at any point here, once we're pointing away from the beach, you might think, okay, we could start sailing here. So then you just release the other end of the other slip line, or release both of them, and you're off. But there we go. It pivots us out. And like Agalos is saying, it makes him feel like it's a really safe way of doing it, which is great. That's what we're trying to achieve here. And then when we've got enough space, then we release and off we go. Great solution. The other solution that I thought might be worth a look is if there is nothing directly behind you, and this would be a good solution in a stronger wind as well, because doing that maneuver in a stronger wind might be a little bit precarious. Once the sail starts grabbing, there's going to be a lot of force there. So what might be better is if there aren't moored boats directly behind you, within a, like, if from directly behind, if in a sort of whatever that is, 60-degree kind of radius behind your boat, if there's no one there, then why not use a really, really long slip line just from the bow and just basically ease out on that, reversing your boat out, just allowing it to go backwards. Have to be a pretty long line, but just going backwards like that until you've got enough space, and then you just release that line, pull it in, a lot of rope to pull in, and then you can start sailing from there, and off we go. So there we go. Great question, Agalos. Thank you very much for that. I hope that that was helpful, and I hope for everyone else that was quite interesting. I'd just like to say at this time, thanks to everybody who has been getting involved with the super stickers. So to Cux Ollie, to DWTS, thank you very much indeed. To Bernhard in Austria, and to Moppy3, or is it Mopple? Moppy3, thank you very much for the super stickers. Yes, this Q&A will remain ad-free for everyone who's turning up later. But you know, if you're in Australia, unless you're here, you're going to be somewhere else, probably sleeping right now, which is fair, I think. Okay. Oh, Moppy is Rob from Holland. Oh, thanks for that, Rob. Very kind of you with the super sticker. Great to have you on board. And hello to Greg in San Diego. Nice to have you on board, man. I've gone out of order with the live chat. Sorry for that. But hello, Greg. All right. So scrolling back up. Yeah, so back for the hydrogen in the hulls chat. Ryan says, what about e-foil motors? Oh, just to give a little bit of thrust upwards. Yeah, interestingly or coincidentally, on this topic of launching and landing from a tricky spot, I actually have filmed a new video for that today, which will be coming out on Sunday. And we're looking at launching and landing through a thin, narrow lane with the wind blowing straight in, because this is now the situation in Vasiliki. The authorities are tightening up a little bit to make it safer. Good reason to make it safer launching and landing. So I thought it was appropriate to make a video on best practice there, how you get in and out the most easily. So there we go. All right. Scrolling down. All right, RJ Fleets. Oh no, there was, I think before we go on to RJ Fleet's question, I think there was another question in the live chat, which I said I was going to come back to. All right, yeah, this one was from Dan Petro. what is the way to repair small rips in the trampoline near to the grommets? Yeah, I know exactly what you're talking about. And I would say my go-to method is to give it to a sailmaker, because that is going to be the best job. But if you haven't got a sailmaker available, like if it's not possible to give it to a sailmaker, what can you do? So what we're talking about here is we've got the grommet or the eyelet in the trampoline. So I just try to find a pen that is better. This one. All right. This one is going over there. So we've got the holes in the trampoline where we're lacing the tramp. And what can happen is, especially if your trampoline's getting a bit older, when you pull a lot of tension in the trampoline, it pulls the grommet away from the material. So, yeah, I've got an orange trampoline, so I'm going to use orange here. So it pulls the material away from the grommet. So there's a hole here. And then if it pulls more, it could start to rip it as well. So what is the best way to fix that? The first thing to do would be to remove the old grommet. That would be step one. Step two would be you do need a special tool. It's like it's almost like a special sort of press, but for the small grommets, you can use a press that you just operate by hitting it with a big hammer. So taking the trampoline off the boat. In fact, that would be step one. Yeah, take out the old grommet. You have to kind of manipulate it out using pliers or something to get it out without damaging the trampoline further. But if it's already started pulling, chances are that if it's an older trampoline, the grommet is likely to be quite sort of decaying, brittle, so quite easy to get rid of. So take the old one out. And then if I absolutely didn't have any way of getting it to a sailmaker, again, the sailmaker would be my choice, then what I would do is I would take a piece of webbing, like seatbelt material webbing, and so grommet is out. There we go. But we're left with a jaggedy hole. This illustration is very good, I think you'll find. There's the edge of the trampoline. So what I would do is take a piece of webbing, as mentioned. I'm going to use blue webbing, and I would cut a piece that goes double, so folded around the edge of the trampoline like that. Maybe even to make it a bit easier to get started, use some double-sided tape to stick it top and bottom to the trampoline, covering the hole. And then what we will do is take some whipping twine. Whipping twine is the kind of like, it's like cotton, but it's made specifically for kind of marine applications. Like whipping twine is, firstly, this might sound obvious, used for whipping, which was for stopping ends of rope from fraying back in the day before everyone just started heat sealing them or using tape. Much better back then, really. But the whipping twine is like cotton, but it's pretty much unbreakable. And in fact, another good use of whipping twine is to use as the security lanyard on your GoPro. There we go. Because it's really thin, but very, very strong. And then we're going to stitch this piece of webbing on here. And, you know, if we're going to do a nice job, I would stitch it like this to get it, the needle through. It's going to take quite a push. So if you don't happen to have a sailmaker's palm, which is like a glove which has a metal piece in the center, which is designed for pushing the needle through, then what I would do is take your pair of pliers, your handy tool, and actually use this part to push the needle through. So you're not trying to push it through with your hand. That is much nicer to push it through with the pliers, then get the pliers the other side and pull it through from the other side. You might even, I did say take the trampoline off, but for this part, you might even find it easier to do with the trampoline still on the boat. And you can use this method as well if there's a tear anywhere else in the trampoline. But let's continue fixing this one. All right, here we go. So going to go around the edge, just doing a sort of tidy stitch like that. Finish it off however you like, nicely, I would recommend. And then phase 2, I would put the next line of stitching around where the hole is. And then it'll be time to put in the new grommet, which would involve just putting a small, like a cross of slices, 2 slices down through the webbing, and then your new grommet can go in, and then you'll have to get one of these things which you whack with a hammer to get that to take. There we go. That is what I would say for repairing such a thing on the trampoline. There we go. If anyone's got a better method, do put it in either the live chat, or put it in the comments if you're watching this later. Thank you very much. Okay, so keeping going. All right, so RJ Fleet says, my Hobie 16 mast base hinge connection broke off. Oh. Murray's has had bases on back order for 18 months. Any suggestions on repairing the base? Yeah, I would say if you can't get hold of because these mast base hinge connectors are only necessary for putting the mast up and down, and even then they're only really, I think personally, they're only really necessary for putting the mast up and down if you are doing it alone. So I would say my suggestion isn't to try to repair the mast base connection thingy. Although if Murray's is going to get hold of one, then yeah, by all means repair it. I would suggest better is to recruit a helper when you're putting your mast up and down, if it's possible. If it's not possible, like I see one of the biggest dangers when putting your mast up or down. So if we've got our boat, we're talking about 16. Non-16 sailors might say, yeah, it's normal. Cool. That's a surprise. Well done. Yeah. When is it not about 16? All right. So one of the biggest dangers any type of boat when you're lifting the mast is that the mast base jumps out of the mast foot, or even more so when you're dropping the mast, in fact. So when the mast gets to about here, if the mast base jumps out, then what happens is if you're, let's say you're stood on the trampoline holding it here, this jumps out, the mast's then going to hit the floor like there. So that is why it's important that we have our mast base secure for raising and lowering. But on a lot of boats, they don't have anything to help you with this. Like on the Tornado, which like the more classic Tornadoes with the aluminium masts, just have like a knuckle and then a bit that the knuckle engages with between the beam and the mast, and nothing to actually connect it. So what we would do is you'd get your helper, which might be the crew, very nice, to stand at the mast base, and their job until the mast is up enough that the weight of the mast is definitely pushing down, keeping the mast base into the mast step. Their job is to push down, making sure that there's no chance that that can jump out. So using another person is definitely key. What else can we do to make it a bit easier when we're lifting the mast is all right, let's say the ideal is either a small wheelie bin or a step ladder. So when we're starting to put the mast up, it makes it a lot easier if there's something. It's first time drawing a wheelie bin in the live Q&A. If, in fact, it would just come to there, lids open, is to put a wheelie bin under the back of the mast. So if we're getting on the boat to kind of push it up, then the mast is already at an angle where we're not having to lift it. We're just pushing it up into that up position. So there you go. That is what I would do there. All right, Moppy3 Rob says, thanks for all your tips, tricks, and humor. I'm still engaged with the FX1. Very nice. Is it possible to get those black sails for this type? And would it mean more speed? Yeah, so Rob is referring to the black sails that I've got on my 16 now, although today and yesterday I've been back. Sorry, where is it? Back using the really good color scheme, actually, using the original. Well, it's not original, but the competition whirlwind sails with these colors, but with the black jib. Nice. Yeah, it looked pretty mean, actually. Was out doing some light wind racing today in the Wild Wind Sailing Holidays race day. Very nice. Don't even know how well I did. Think I got 3 seconds, maybe. Tough fleet. Yeah, so could you get the black sails, these Super R sails, for an FX1? I would say, well, the thing is, the FX1 already has that kind of shape of sail. What could be a kind of modified sail shape on an FX1? I think the most likely modification on an FX1 mainsail would be a longer top batten. So let's get rid of the wheelie bin. So what we've got, this is going to be our FX1 hull shape. Like this. Which way does that go? So it's straight like that. Here is our, oh, in fact, let's have this sail. So in fact, this would be the shape that you might end up with the top batten being a bit longer, which basically puts a bit more sail area higher up. Also, that longer top batten does some of the work for you. So it kind of acts like suspension for the gusts, because if you think about it, when the sail loads up with more pressure, those battens, especially the higher up ones, are going to bend off. And then when the gust goes down, they're going to kind of they're going to come back. So it really takes some of the work out the longer the top batten is that you have on the sail. So the original FX1 sail probably has a top slightly more similar to this shape. So that would be the modification. But if you're looking for something pretty fresh for your FX, I would say get in touch with Chip at Whirlwind Sails, and I'm sure he'll have some ideas there. Very nice. Would it mean more speed? I would think so. All right, Christian says, how about just sail backwards? Well, yes, we're back to Agilos's beach departure. Yeah, sailing backwards would be the easiest, but I think on the nature of the boat that Agilos has got, like if it was a Hobie 16, nothing behind you with a good wide window of departure, then certainly just to explain what we're talking about here. If this is the beach, if we've got plenty of space like this, offshore wind, then so the boat would be like this, then the easiest thing to do is, if we've got loads and loads of space, have the rudders in the up position. If you've got centerboards or dagger boards, have those in the up position as well. And then one person on each bow, or if you're sailing solo, just stand or sit on one of the bows, release from the mooring, and the boat will go backwards. Because the reason it will go backwards is because the knife-like bow of the boat, this section, when we're at the front, when we're sat on the bow, we're putting that knife-like section of bow in the water, which means that those two bows are acting like rudders, long rudders, keeping the boat going really straight. So that is how we can go backwards. No rudders. We keep the downhaul off. You can have the sails up, but downhaul loose, and the boat will go backwards. Very nice. That was also a feature in today's video that I filmed. You'll see that on Sunday. Nice one, Christian. Good idea. All right. So Bernhard says, how is it called sitting on the front holes and go backwards? Oh, yes. So great minds thinking alike here. I would just call that going backwards. Two ways of going backwards. That is one way, sitting on the bows with no rudders. The other way is to sit on the trampoline with the rudders down, and then the rudders become really, really twitchy and you have to hold on very tight. But then you have got a little bit of steering when you're going backwards. All right. So we have got on board, I believe this might be the first time, for Ice Cream Matt 15. Nice to have you with us. Do you think using 2 times 40-litre dry bags on top of the mast would work for keeping a MiniCat 420 from turtling? I would say yes. Yeah, I'm pretty sure. In fact, possibly even just one. I would say it's worth doing some testing, because in the testing that I did, I think I used 3 swimming pool noodles, and I think that doing some research, they reckon that the actual litres, the volume of one swimming pool noodle was like about 5 litres, something like that. So 3 of those, 15 litres, 40 litres should easily stop it from turtling. Yeah, because the MiniCats do invert pretty quickly. So it's definitely something worth looking into. But I would say 1 would be a good test to start with. All right, so we've got as Deportiop. You never know where the breaks are between the words in YouTube names as well. All right, who says, I purchased a DJI Osmo Action 5 Pro action camera. Very nice. To record my Nacra 15 FCS. Wow. Nice sailing exploits. However, I'm not sure if I should use it on the boat, on my head, or on my chest. All right, I've got a good quick, let's dismiss that. The chest cam for cat sailing, if you're trapezing, isn't very good, because I found this out by doing it, of course. If you use a chest cam, all you're getting is a close-up of the trapezing gear. So you'll see a whole lot of that from the on the camera. Head cam, for me, if I could only use one, let's say if I could only use one camera angle at all forever from this day forwards, it would be the head camera. Why? First thing is the head camera is really versatile. You just need to have a bit of discipline in being aware staying aware that your head is the tripod mount that is holding the camera. So if you keep turning your head quickly, the footage is going to be pretty unusable. Whereas if you think, I'm going to just be really focused with my head looking that way and just turn my eyes if I need to see something else, or turn your head slowly so it's a nice panning shot. But the head cam really is number one. The other reason why the head cam is number one is because your viewers, even if it's you looking at the footage, the most kind of immersive bit of footage is seeing what the sailor saw at the time, which is why the head cam is definitely number one. Downside of the head cam is if you get salt water, especially on the lens, which of course, it being on your head, you do get splashed in the face sometimes, so it's going to happen. Then you might end up with a bit of what would you call it, distortion in the picture. So the worst time for keeping your lens clean is in kind of marginal conditions, when it's not really windy and you're getting sprayed a lot. Because if you're getting sprayed a lot, that keeps your lens clean. But if you're getting sprayed like once every 10 minutes, that's enough time, especially salt water, for the salt to set on the lens. So then you have to develop a technique of thumbing the lens, and yeah, it becomes a bit more tricky. All right, what else did you say? Head or what about on the boat? In fact, this is going to bring us on to our next preloaded question pretty nicely. But on the boat, one of the best positions on the boat on the Nacra 15 would be, let's have a boat. I think an absolute classic has got to be on the bowsprit, and having the camera on the bowsprit or spinnaker pole, so like here, facing backwards, it's a really cool shot. But it's not the, if you really wanted to make a sort of immersive film, then you'd want to do a bit with it there, bit on your head. That would really make for quite a good full film that you could upload to Joyrider worldwide. Yeah, very nice. Yeah, but the good thing about having the camera on the bowsprit, or you could even mount it on the bowsprit further back, like just behind where the bridle wires come, in that spot, so it doesn't get in the way of the spinnaker gear or the jib gear. Just behind there is, if it's facing backwards, it's not going to get any spray on it, so your lens is going to stay clean. That's a really good thing. But also, even from here, with your field of view set to wide, you're going to get this sort of amount of vision around the boat, which is really nice. You'll be able to see everything. You can see what you're doing, and it looks amazing. So there you go. Those are the go-tos. But there are a lot of go-tos. Another go-to would be strap a pole alongside your boom, extending back about a meter, maybe a meter and a half beyond the boom. So if this is the pole like this, then you could have like a clamp on the pole, camera underneath like this. There it is, pointing forwards, and you get a really good shot of all the It's a great shot, this one, because you get the action of the people on the boat, and you get to see where the boat is going. That's really nice. So those are three good ones. Hope that helps. I'm going to steam in here with the next preloaded question. Sorry, I lost my way. Which is from joy2sail.de, which I believe is it Derek? in Germany, Dennis, sorry, Dennis. It's Dennis in Germany, who says, what camera mounting system is that on the front beam in one of the previous videos, where I think it was the jibless video. Is it faster with or without the jib? Yeah. So what I used was half of a windsurfing boom. So the half windsurfing boom is actually the same mount that I've been using off the back of the boom on the 16, because to take a pole off the back of a boom on a 16, if it's a straight pole, it puts the camera too close to the water. So your lens is going to be absolutely spray riddled. And also the camera might actually be in the water for periods of time. So been using half a windsurf boom that looks a bit like this, like that. And then what I've done to allow it to fit a camera is I buy these things off eBay or Temu or somewhere like that. So bolting it through here to into the end of the pole, and then the camera goes on the top there. And how did I do it on the 16 for that video? Well, basically I had the windsurf boom. If this is it, I had this end strapped to the bottom of the Dolphin Striker, and then this end strapped around the front beam. So it was quite high up, but I like this one because it's really secure, and it felt like pretty bomb proof being there. So it didn't matter what I was going to do with the boat. We were going to be fine. There we go. All right. So there you go, Dennis. Back into the live chat. Mr. Tony KP says, I normally use a piece of rope around the front beam when hoisting the mast. Security. I have an eyelet at the bottom of the mast that I route the rope through. There we go. All right. Ice Cream Matt says the official one is on back. The official one is back ordered is why. I think it just means that they can't get hold of one from the manufacturer at the moment. I think that is the bottom line. All right. So we're just into quick answers now. We've been going now for 1 hour and 12 minutes. That is a reasonable amount of time. Ice Cream Matt says your channel was a huge inspiration for me buying one. Thanks for all the videos. Thanks very much for being inspired by the videos. Yeah, this is my kind of like mission statement, is to get people into catamaran sailing. And then once they are into catamaran sailing, to help people get more from their catamaran, to feel more comfortable, to go sailing in a wider range of conditions, so that once you've bought a catamaran, you're actually going to use it and enjoy using it because you know how to use it correctly. That's what I'm trying to do. There we go. Thank you. But thank you for letting me know. Okay. Jay Lawrence says, as a novice, headcam is helpful for learning. Was a watching the hull before it ploughed into the sea. Yes, there you go. Yeah, definitely. The headcam is the one, I would say. All right. Moppy3 says black is nicer on photos. More speed would be extra. Sorry. Oh, okay. Yeah. The context, the super R sail on the FX1. I feel the FX is very speed sensitive for length trim. Am I right? But also dive happy. Yeah, to get the FX1 going really fast, I find extremely difficult. It kind of, for me, I find that anything over 20 knots and it really starts to want to dive. But I think when we get to the big wind, high speed sailing season, which I might miss quite a lot of because I'm going to be away at events, then to actually tune up an FX1 specifically to go faster, which the first thing I would do is bring the mast further back. That is going to have the biggest effect because we're putting more weight over the back of the boat, which means it's not going to be driving the bows down as much. All right. Yeah, but it is tricky, the FX, to go fast. But for sailing upwind, downwind, in up to 20 knots, great boat. So if you happen to be looking at buying an FX1 and you're not sure, is it a great boat? It's a great boat. There you go. All right. So Max is on board in Rosenheim, Germany. Now, wind here for the last days. Nice. Yes. All right. So I think we're going to call it a day there. Thank you very much, everybody, for tuning in. I think this has been a really strong session. And I hope that many of you have some good sailing to be getting on with this weekend. If you're going out sailing, keep it safe. Main thing. Just if it's windy and you're going out sailing this weekend, just spend a few minutes on the beach looking out to sea and just think, what if, and just run through a couple of scenarios. What if something happens? How are we going to have a good time if something happens? Or how are we going to get back if something happens? What are we going to do? Have some sort of contingency in mind. Not to put a dampener on things, but I think it's a good idea. Carry a knife and a whistle and have a good time. All right, nice one. And I'll see you on Sunday with a new video. Thank you very much.